Yeah, since I'm uninterrupted, I did get interrupted. There are some people who block my signal, some people who slow my internet connection practically to a snail pace because they don't want me to talk or say what I say in what has become sort of like my journal, a collection of it. Someone told me like if you just let everything out, if you tell everybody everything, you let everything out, supposedly you'll be left with nothing. Well, I want to tell that somebody that I have barely reached half of what I am actually giving out. As a matter of fact, we're talking about 1/10 that I have already given up. For one, I am still growing, I am still maturing, and I am every day dedicating myself to this. Every day, I feel freer every day. Those people that used to be sent to the hospitals to harass me, the police that were, you know, turning on their sirens on the daily to harass me, not to include when the Namibian Defense Force decided to take out all of their artillery, with someone at the back actually giving them a message about, well, he's about to come. And I drive and I see, I was practically this on the left and on the right, all I could see were cannons, like huge cannons, right? So there are people that have been trying to get to me that way, especially because I don't have a bodyguard. I'm my bodyguard. Alright? So, am I scared? No, not at all. And today, I want to talk about what's happening right now. We see a lot of stars, and I say stars, going over to China. Some discreetly going to China to sort of find out how their system is working, right? How their economy is blooming, right? And we had Yao Ming in the US, along with his staff and stuff. So that's a good way to also infiltrate a place, right? You don't need to hack, you don't need to do whatever. You just look at the people and you see how they behave. You see where their weaknesses are and where their strength are, or their strength is. So now China is the second strongest economy. How did they do it? This is what everybody wants to know. I watched a show about a guy who spoke, a Chinese guy who lived in America and then moved back to China, and he was talking about how China, the communist government of China, actually allows, not allows, but allocates power to so many different people that the president does not become a dictator, right? They control him within those confines. That's what he was saying, right? That the way we see China's system, their political system, the way we see it isn't necessarily the way it is, right? Well, here's something. If he gets this pondered, China is now working on zero. And I think economists would understand what I mean by working on zero. That means we are beginning to see a lot of Chinese coming to Africa. What are they doing in Africa? The minerals and so forth. But what does it mean? What it means is they want to turn their zero into a one, because China is in deficit. Really, we see all those fancy buildings that they have where nobody lives. Seriously, a beautiful building, like maybe 20 stories, well off, but nobody lives there. when the lights are off in the city, the lights are off there because there's no one there. So this is what they've been doing. They have been dragging zero. As they dragged zero, the more they became attractive to investors, to people that want them to also help them to increase their value or their GDP, because they also want to get to that benchmark where they are also making a lot of money, where their currency is increasing. But China's stock market is in shambles. The only reason that China's stock market seems to be going up, right, is because of their economist. The one thing everybody knows is China is good with numbers. Brilliant. So they know how to drag a zero. And that's why they confine a lot of their products within China. They would go somewhere, look at what they are doing, come back, incorporate that technology in China, and then ship it out. As they ship it out, the money comes back and it goes away. China. So when we speak of trade agreements, China doesn't necessarily acknowledge trade agreements. That's why you see when they come and mine here, it's an inhumane manner of mining. You have people that die at these mines because the equipment that they use is outdated, and they do this on purpose. They just take anything that will do the job. They don't consider the safety of the people working there. So when some people say Chinese are bad, or we don't want Chinese, or whatever, they are not speaking about the individual people. They are speaking about the system. They don't want the way China operates to infiltrate their country. At the moment, when I spoke to my cousin, I said we can be China, but without the population, because the population is a very big hurdle for China. I mean, which other country have you heard that lawfully states that a person can only have one child, and if they have a second child, then they have to pay for that child? Name that country. It's China. They are really good at sweeping things under the rug. Very good. So if you want fair trade with China, you have to lift up that beautiful rug, and you will notice a lot of dirt, because the people that live outside the cities, the villages, are suffering. And I'm talking about this on behalf of them. They are suffering, like seriously suffering. In fact, the so-called rule of law that they have in China does not apply to the villagers, because they delegate, China Central delegates power to those so-called chiefs, and then those chiefs then rule over those communities. But what those chiefs do is, when they get the money, they eat it. They use it for their own benefit. So what you see, if you look closely, you will see tiny little spots where dictators are. Most people think that a dictator is someone who runs forever in government as the president. That's not so. A dictator is someone that has power that has not been democratically elected. They are elected because they were born from that family or born from that family. That doesn't make them smart. It doesn't mean that they have the capacity to deal with the issues that are on the ground. No. So basically we have a lot of Yao Ming, or what's Yao Ming Jin, or what's his name, parading as leaders within China. So China is divided into two. The same with Ethiopia. Most people see pictures of Ethiopia and they see small kids starving, right? With the belly condition. I'm sure you know it. So that's where the media focuses. Oh, look at these poor children and so forth. But if you look at the other side of Ethiopia, it's thriving. People are eating. Some people have so much food. When it goes bad, they throw it away. They have cars. They have everything that they need. Why don't they care about the less fortunate? Because they hide behind the concept of Ethiopia being a very, 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 very poor nation, a nation in poverty. That's what they hide behind. And that's not the truth. The same with Zimbabwe. If you look at Zimbabwe cities and you go to the rural side of Zimbabwe, you'll be surprised. And it's the same with Angola. If you look at one side of Angola and you look at the other side of Angola, you will see these people are thriving, these people are not. So wealth distribution is not being moderated fairly. And the only way to moderate wealth distribution fairly, right, to keep it from greedy hands, is to use grants. Right now, when I say grants, I mean services. Allow these people to have access to sophisticated hospital care. Like in our country, there's a lady that we are praising. I won't mention her because I don't want YouTube to censor me and all of that stuff again. But she volunteered to take cataracts out of a lot of people. She even won a prize. I think you know who she is. And she did that herself because as a doctor, she also had compassion. She asked herself, okay, I have this capacity. What can I do with it? So she's a hero, or shiro, however you want to put it. In China, the sophisticated technology belongs to a few. And that's why you get some people hiding in barrels that are traveling to Africa. Does this remind you of something? People putting themselves in barrels. It should remind you of something. Slavery. How were slaves transported? In the ships, where it's uncomfortable, where it's too hot. And if you make it, you're lucky. If you don't, who knows? So the innocence of China, I am not going to preach about the innocence because they are guilty. Look at the suicide rates in China, and most of those suicide rates is because they don't allow the young generation to learn unless they come from a well-off family, and that is a fact. So where do they end up? They end up making Nike sneakers, they end up making soccer balls and all of that, and they are so worked and so underpaid that in the end it becomes too much, and then they commit suicide. Young people, a lot of young people are committing suicide because they are asking themselves, wherever I go, if I die, has to be better than here. Their unions are all bribed, if ever they are allowed. So China is growing with a zero. The reason China is growing is because they have 1 billion people who they can pay almost peanuts to do things that, say, in America would cost a lot, because in America you have unions. They check the wages, they check the working environment. It's sophisticated. In China, they just don't care. So they are using the power of their population at the moment. So how can this be approached? How can this be infiltrated? Because even if we speak about it or talk about it, it doesn't change anything, right? So I mean, there have been some people who tried to go undercover so that they can go and shame these people, but the trade agreements the trade agreements need to grow. They need to be wider. By wider, I mean China has has to conform to certain working conditions. It's good for China, it's good for the states, and at the end of the day, it's good for our world, because we are seeing people immigrating from this place to that place, that place to this place, right? So we are becoming a multicultural planet, right? But we still need to regulate it where it's bad. China is still in the phase of like their traditions influence them a lot. For example, when they still had the emperors, I think when they still had emperors who would carry them up really high mountains, carry them, not horses, no nothing, but just carrying them. That's China. That's the tradition that they have, and that trauma that they had from the war even made it worse. So right now, a lot of Chinese feel left out, and not a lot of people are speaking about this. We hear the UN speak about these children, those children, but really touching on the very real condition that Chinese people who are not as privileged are living in. Because when they are good, then we are all good. Then we will be able to lynch out, to pull out the thieves and the corrupt. But at the moment it's hard because they are hiding behind human shields. So for my young Chinese friends, let's start to infiltrate, let's start to show, because the benefit will come. As slow as it might be, we will definitely make a change. We've done it before, why not now? And with that, I salute you.